Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought today we would have a look at a statement from good old Smin, one of the community managers for War Thunder, and talking about what is going to come to War Thunder in the next few updates. Now remember, when it comes to War Thunder, there are 5 updates a year. You have usually one around February, March, you have one around June, one around September, which is the one we're on currently, and then also 2 more, one just before Christmas in December, and then also at the start of November. So there's plenty of content to come this year still, even though we're halfway through. Usually what ends up happening is it's very much stacked towards the end of the year, so the next few months are going to be a bit crazy. And one of the parts of the game which is definitely not necessarily lacking in content, but lacking in parity and lacking in balance is the high echelons of naval. Blue Water is one of those areas where it doesn't get a lot of coverage at the high tiers, mainly because it doesn't have a huge player base, and generally if you are making videos online, one of the things that you want to do, if you want to make money out of things, is to try and appeal to the largest player base possible. That's why a lot of people do ground videos, that's why a lot of people do mid-tier ground videos, because that is the part of the game where most people are playing. But at the same time, it's interesting to look at other parts of the game because, in general, the expansion of them, to me, is some of the most important areas. So, for Naval, it still has the highest potential for expansion, whether it comes to its high tier, whether it comes to its mid tier or low tier. There are a ton of different mechanics that they can add, there are a ton of different things that they can bring in, specifically stuff like submarines, more missile destroyers or missile coastal machines, more modern ships, which are, more modern destroyers, for example, or battleships from the Second World War. Gaijin is still technically focusing on more dreadnought designs, more mid-1930s or, early 1930s, mid-1920s designs, so there is still a lot of room for expansion in the high tiers, which is why it's pretty cool. And as a person who has heard over and over and over again from people such as, community members saying stuff like, hey, if they add this vehicle, I'll grind naval. If they add this vehicle, I'll grind naval. Whether they will or not is obviously going to find out at the time, but it means that there is some people waiting for these higher tier bangers in Blue Water. And Smin put this a few days ago. Hello, we currently plan to add a new ship for every nation at rank 6 over the next 2 major updates. Naturally, this is subject to some possible change, but vessels are indeed coming down the line for the nations you mentioned. Now, the nations that were mentioned in the specific post when they were talking about it was UK, Italy, and France. So that was basically the ones which were being focused on by the person themselves. UK is obviously getting the Baron right now with the event vehicle. Don't know if that's classed as the new kind of top vehicle for the British, but it is at least an event vehicle. I'm sure they'll get another Queen Elizabeth class in the tech tree, which is more likely for obvious reasons, but also for the other nations. For France, they're still expanding and have been rapidly expanding, obviously with the coastal tree being added, the Mogador also coming in, and a few other machines too in the future. And then the other part of it, which is Italy. Italy is one of those where it's unfortunate that they're in kind of like a weird place, but that's just because you have 2 unfortunate factors. Number 1, nobody plays them, and the people who play them are very small in the number that actually touch the tech tree, so therefore it becomes less of a priority. And then number 2, which is the other part, if you actually have a look at history, they don't have exactly a metric ton of options right now that they can add. So because battleships and because battlecruisers take a lot of money to build, and I would love to go into the finances of the models behind these things and how much they cost, because it's insane how much a lot of them cost, but that would be something that Gaijin themselves should talk about, since of course they are the ones who are doing the contracts. Mine would be from an outside perspective, which wouldn't be as useful. But the fact is, that's a lot of money invested for hardly anybody to play the vehicles, right? And that is why it's a bit of an issue and why it's a bit of a lost leader. But the main thing to focus on when it comes to this is every nation is getting a high rank vehicle in the next few updates. The US, obviously, again, the Tennessee, that's already turned up. The Barham for the British, if they decide to pick that as their vehicle. And of course, the Japanese are getting a very high-tier vehicle again. And the issue right now with War Thunder is pretty simple. There is a lot of vehicles for specific nations at the top BR of Naval, such as Japan. They have like 6 of them now, I think, and they're about to have 7 with the event vehicle. And other nations have 1 or 2, which is pretty nuts. So it'll be really cool to see a Gaijin dev or somebody who makes the decisions around the game when it comes to their thinking of what they're ended up doing with this setup. Like, why have they decided that certain nations need a ton of vehicles at the top tier with a bunch of really good mechanics and also a bunch of really good uses, whereas other nations only get 1, maybe 2 at most, and that's pretty much it. So it would be cool to see if they could actually kind of discuss that or show that, but I feel like we're not going to get that because obviously it would open up them to kind of show why they add stuff to certain nations. Why are they trying to push people to play specific nations because they're not as popular in other areas, or is it because, you know, the vehicles were ready at the time and therefore they decided to kind of put them in for that time? That could also be a part of it. And or they're trying to do a different method. What I would do personally when I look at this stuff is I would do kind of a method where what you do is you focus on different nations for each of the updates. So first of all, you give US a banger for one update, next update Germany gets a banger, next update USSR gets a banger. So therefore the people who follow the meta or chase it would play all of these different areas instead of just playing, you know, the standard one tech tree over and over again. And yes, this would lead to people getting annoyed, but at the same time, this is something that would also mean that you get more people playing more stuff. You get a higher variety instead of people getting stuck to one tech tree, which is the problem we have right now with a lot of the game. And hopefully going forward they can try and fix that, but right now it's not really looking like it. The other part is what vehicles could they add? You know, obviously they've said, oh, well, Russia's also getting a top-ranked vehicle. So that leaves us with France, Italy, Germany, and I think that's it, right? Everybody else is getting a top vehicle, unless you don't count Britain in. So let's not count Britain. So what could Germany get? Well, there's a bunch of options, right? Like there's a ton of battleships and battle cruisers that could turn up, whether they are of the World War II era or whether they are from before. There is plenty that they can add in. Remember, even many years ago, the Tirpitz got leaked for the Germans, which was pretty cool. Britain also just has 1 million battleships / battle cruisers that they can add with higher powered guns, and France, hopefully the Dunkirks are the vehicle which is kind of focused on, because the Dunkirks in general are the ones which are cool. You know, they have the quad turrets which make people interested in them, that give something different in terms of playstyle because of the way that they're set up with their guns, and for me, I would hope that that would be the part that's focused on. Naval, for me, in general, the part that I'm actually interested in, though, is to see how the game mode shifts, to see if they actually do bring in a different way of playing, or if it's just going to be based around the capture zones, or based around, like, the large circle maps, which are ones which are kind of odd to actually play. But we'll see what happens with it. The main thing to be focused on is that they are bringing in big old new vehicles, which is fantastic. And hopefully, going forward, that means that we get more people playing the higher echelons of Naval, so it isn't just, you know, 2 people versus 2 people facing a bunch of bots, and people just destroy the bots, because, at least in my experience, that's basically what happens. As always, though, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.